Hi, hello, welcome to Traveling with Dave. My name is Dave McGowan. I am your host. And on this episode of Traveling to Dave, we're going to talk about why we travel. We're going to talk about vacations. We're going to talk about family time. We're going to talk about personal time. And we're going to talk about how I started traveling way back when I was a little kid. So welcome and hang in. We're going to have a good time on Traveling with Dave. All right, here we go. We're going to talk about travel, and we're going to start out with how I started to travel from the time I was a little kid. I was born in Wakefield, Massachusetts, way back in the 50s. My dad was from Massachusetts. My mom was from Fort Kent, Maine. We'll talk a little bit about that as time goes by. Fort Kent is the home of the marker that says this is the end of US Route 1. The other end is way down in Key West, Florida. And I have a funny story about that, and I'll share that in a different post. But right now, just want to let you know that Mom was born there. She was one of 10 kids, 5 lived. The 5 that lived were my mom and her sister, both in Wakefield, Massachusetts, her other sister in Caribou, Maine, and her 2 brothers, one in Niagara Falls, New York, one in Sacramento, California. He later moved to Brigham City, Utah. All of that is relevant because it formulated why I traveled from a little kid. From the time I was born, my parents were visiting my mother's family, whether it was in northern Maine or in New York State. They were all road trips, and we had real specific things that we did on those trips. We would get together as a family. We'd load up the family car, whether it was that 1955 Pontiac that we had, or the 62 Plymouth Fury 3, or the 65 Plymouth Fury 3, or whatever car it was. We would load that thing up and we would travel. We'd go to Caribou, Maine. We'd go to Niagara Falls, New York. And from the time I was a little kid, I would sleep on the back seat of the car, and we'd get to Buffalo, New York, and I would wake up and watch the factories in Buffalo and watch the roads as we went over Grand Island and into Niagara Falls. And I always got such a great kick out of that. I looked forward to seeing Uncle Lou and Aunt Betty out there in Niagara Falls. It was great. And it created some of that love of travel in me. Then, as a big benefit, in 1961, my brother signed a contract with the Detroit Tigers. And he became a pitcher in their minor league farm systems, and he pitched in Duluth, Minnesota, Montgomery, Alabama, Jamestown, New York, Knoxville, Tennessee. And we traveled to all but Montgomery. We didn't go to Montgomery, Alabama, but we went to the other sites. And I have to tell you, those memories are some of the greatest memories in my life. We went to Knoxville, Tennessee, and it was before the highway system was built. Now, I know how the highway system is because I've driven through Tennessee and through Massachusetts, through all of that. And I went, when I went from New Hampshire to San Diego, when I moved here years later, I traveled down 81 into Tennessee, where I picked up 40 and came across the country that way. But you know, those didn't exist in those days. So they were building that road system, but you know, we traveled near the Natural Bridge in Virginia. We traveled to places where there were brand new fast food restaurants. I had never seen a fast food restaurant before we went, but we went to a fast food restaurant. We went to something that was akin to a McDonald's, and I don't know if it was McDonald's or something else, but it was a fast food restaurant with the family just to get lunch on the road. We stayed in motels that were kind of the countryside motels, the things that you would read about in history, not where you'd stay now, that's for sure. And we had a great time as a family. When we were in Knoxville, we went to restaurants that I'll never forget and had different food that I'll never forget. I remember going into a Blue Circle diner in downtown Knoxville, Tennessee, and my father said good morning to the waitress. That was it. And the waitress looked at him and said, "Why, you're from Boston, ain't you?" Because his accent was so predominant that there was nothing he could do to get away from it. And all of those memories mean so much in my mind. As I went on, my sister moved to San Diego, California, and we came to San Diego in 1967. We went to spring training in Lakeland, Florida in 1965, and then went down to Miami, and we did that by train that trip. So I have vivid memories of the observation car and having dinner on the train, sleeping overnight in the train seats because there were no private cars on that train. It was just sleeping in the seats. And I remember traveling underneath Washington, going through Union Station in Washington, D.C., going through Philadelphia, going to New York, getting off at Grand Central Station or Pennsylvania Station. From Boston, we'd go to Pennsylvania Station and then travel across town by cab to go to Grand Central Station, where we got on the train to go to Florida. We did the same thing coming back. We took the train from Miami all the way back to Boston. And those times were fantastic. Mom and Dad took their first cruise in 1969 out of New York City on the Oceanic. And when they did that, we took the train to New York City, and then my sister and I went on board the ship, and then they announced all ashore that's going ashore. We got off the ship, and then there were streamers and all kinds of stuff as the ship cruised out of the harbor. We watched it back out of the slip. Can't do that today, but it was sure great at that time, and it really whet my appetite for travel and for doing things on my own, and I've continued that travel right through to today. Now, why do we travel? What is it that makes us want to travel? You know, part of it is our natural curiosity. We want to see how other people live. We want to see what happens in other parts of the world and other parts of our country. And we take different ways to travel because we're curious about how those ways work, whether it's a car trip or a cruise or a plane trip or a train. And I'm going to cover all of those things in this series. This is my first ever YouTube video for Traveling with Dave. I have a website for that, and I have to confess I am a travel agent as I've become later in life. So my website has to do with travel, but you know, whether you travel through me or somebody else, travel, get it done. Now, in order to help me out on this, if you want, you can get onto that subscribe button on YouTube and hit the subscribe button, hit the bell and have the alerts set up, and please give me a like so that other people get to see this video and get to see about travel. So moving on here, my family has always traveled. My sister went to Venezuela in 1969. My sister was then shipped to Florida with her husband, who worked for Northeast and then Delta Airlines. And we traveled and visited them as well. And to go back, my family goes this way. My brother is 12 years older than me. My sisters are 10 and 9 years older than me. I am the youngest of 4 children. Surprise! And I was always spoiled to death. So I really got a chance to do a lot more than they did. Mom and Dad were not well off at all. I'm from a relatively poor family. Dad did work for the railroad, and he did gain prominence after a while with the railroad, but it took a long time. When he started out, he was making $7 a week, so that'll give you some idea of where we are. He started with the railroad in 1940. Dad only lived until he was 55. He died in 1975, right after coming home from his third cruise on the American East out of Boston going to Bermuda. And he loved that. He loved the cruise. He loved the ambience on the ship. The American East was tiny. If you look it up, it was a tiny, tiny, tiny ship. But that's the ship that they went on. The reason that we travel, the reason to travel, the reason to vacation is because it helps you. It lowers your blood pressure. It relaxes your mind. It makes you feel better about everything in life. And it gives you a new perspective, a perspective on how things work in other places, a perspective of how other people live. I had a time when I was not doing well financially at all. There was a good 6 or 7 years when I was married to my first wife. I was working 3 jobs. I was cleaning office buildings at night. I was working as a DJ from time to time, and I was working a 40-hour, actually a 60-hour day job. And so I was working probably 80 hours a week, and there was no vacation time in there at all. And I did that for 6 or 7 years, and I purchased a timeshare, and that forced me to vacation at least once a year. And I got a chance to go places and do things. We went to Virginia, we went to North Carolina, we went to Newport in Rhode Island, along with going up to the White Mountains in New Hampshire on a regular basis. And it allowed me to unwind, it allowed me to relax, it allowed me to open my mind to other things. And it really gave me a very healthy feeling, both mentally and physically, from doing the travel. And I know that that's what vacation time does for everyone. Now, as time went on, we started doing other things. My second wife and I traveled a little more, went to a few more places. And then I moved to San Diego in 2003 from New Hampshire. And since I've been in San Diego, I met my third wife, and she and I went on our first cruise in 2005. We were on the Oosterdam, Holland America Oosterdam, and it was myself and my girlfriend at the time, who became my wife, my brother and his wife, my 2 sisters, and my mom. And my mom was in the beginnings of Alzheimer's disease at that point, and we took her on the cruise, and she was so thrilled because she got a chance to dance with both of her sons. And it was really her last hurrah. And she loved to travel. She traveled all over the United States, and she really enjoyed it. That first cruise really made us want to do more cruises. And my brother and his wife decided that they weren't going to wait, and they started cruising. They lived in Florida. They started cruising, and they cruised on Carnival. So they became platinum cruisers on Carnival, which they always were very excited about and let me know about every time I got on a Carnival ship, because I wasn't platinum. And we would meet them in Florida, and we would go for 1 cruise a year. It was their anniversary cruise, and it was in the worst time of year to cruise. It was hurricane season. We always cruised in September. And for their 50th anniversary, we were on the Carnival Miracle. And people have referred to that as the Carnival Magical Miracle Tour, because we were affected by 2 hurricanes, and our cruise itinerary was supposed to be Puerto Rico. It was supposed to be Grand Turk, Puerto Rico, St. Martin, and St. Thomas. And we ended up going to Amber Cove, Montego Bay, Grand Cayman, and to Cozumel, because the hurricanes were going through, and these were the hurricanes that destroyed those islands that we were supposed to go to. San Juan was wiped out. St. Martin was destroyed. And we're very happy that they've rebuilt since then, but that was our cruise at that time. I've been on a number of other cruises before and since. My cruising experience ranges from a lot of cruises on Carnival, a cruise on Celebrity, 2 cruises on Royal Caribbean, a cruise on Princess, we are scheduled to do a Carnival cruise this year to Hawaii, and we're going on a Virgin cruise for the first time in September, and I'll tell you about that in a little while. But I also travel other ways. So while we were doing those cruises, we also did other things. My wife and I wanted to see all of the baseball parks in the United States, all the major league parks. We were big baseball fans. I'm still a big baseball fan. And so we've been to 11 baseball parks, not anywhere near close to where we wanted to be. We also wanted to go to all the presidential libraries. So we've been to 7 of those. And we traveled through Texas. We traveled through all of the places that we wanted to go. Texas and Florida, and we'd go to Las Vegas on a regular basis. We ate at great restaurants. We did a lot of fun things. And that's the reason that I started this page to begin with, to talk about travel. Over the time that I'm here, I plan on talking about trains. I want to talk about cruises. I want to talk about road trips. I want to talk about camping. I'm going to do a special show just on timeshares because a lot of people have a lot of really weird thoughts about timeshares and what they are. So I'm going to share some of that stuff, some of the things that I know about that. I own 4 of them. And I'm going to share some of my insight there. But more than anything else, I'm going to try to share my love of travel. I'm going to let you know how I got a chance to be so lucky that in 1973, I got a chance to go to London and to Ireland. And I drove all through Ireland. Funny story, I didn't know how to drive a stick. And the person I went to Ireland with didn't know how to drive a stick. And we rented a car, and it was a manual transmission. Neither of us knew how to drive it. So he had no idea, just no idea at all. And I had a small clue. So I learned how to drive a manual transmission car, shifting with my left hand, sitting on the right-hand side of the car, driving through Dublin in rush hour with cars and horse and carriages and all of that going through the streets of Dublin in 1973. So we'll talk about all of those things. I also want to talk about plane travel. I want to talk about how to get a good deal on a plane, where to sit on a plane, what goes on with that. And we're going to give you tips and insights and ideas and all of the things that you can do to travel. And I really hope that you enjoy this situation and enjoy this show. Now, the final thing that I'm going to mention to you, and this is really important, is that people put vacations aside. They fix the house and they wash the car and they do all of the things that they're supposed to do as responsible adults. And they say, I'm going to do all that travel when I retire. I'm going to do all that stuff as I get older, but I'm going to do the things that I should do as a responsible adult. And I'm going to tell you, don't do it. I'm going to tell you, travel. Do the things that you want to do now. Don't wait. Don't say, I'm going to do that in a year or 2 years or 5 years or 6 years. No, do it now. Because you don't know what's going to happen in 2 years or 4 years or 5 years or 6 years. My dad got home from their cruise in 1975. He felt great. He had open heart surgery a couple of years earlier. His heart was 100%. He went to the doctor on the Monday after the cruise. The doctor said, "You are doing great. Your blood pressure is good, your body fat is where it's supposed to be, everything is great. All of your blood work is great. You look great, fantastic. And the following Monday, he had a massive coronary, and he was gone in 7 weeks. We certainly didn't expect that after the doctor's report, but that's the way it was. I married my third wife, and she was working for the police department here in San Diego, and she had an opportunity to retire at 55. She did. I did not. I did not retire. I'm at work right now. You can probably see that. And I said to her, I'm going to retire when you hit 62. I'm going to retire because I'll be 65 that year. And I'll retire and then we'll travel. We found out that she had cancer 2 months before she turned, actually less than that, about 7 weeks before she turned 62. And she turned 62 on the 1st of January and died on the 7th of January. My brother and his wife did travel. They did everything that they wanted to do. And you know, the best part about that was that they got a chance to really enjoy themselves and spend time with their kids, spend time with their family, spend time with me. And last fall, they came down with COVID, and we lost both of them in December. And it was unfathomable to me. They were both in great physical condition. They were both wonderful people, but they're gone. I have friends that are gone from those things. My wife and I did travel. My brother and his wife did travel. When it was time for their funeral, when it was time to talk about them, when it was time to think about them, the memories we had were of those great times we had when we traveled. And those are the memories you want to have. Nobody has memories about painting the house. Nobody says, oh man, what a great time that was painting the house. No. That's not how it works. The great time was when you were on that cruise. The great time was when you were at that chocolate factory in Cozumel and you were learning about how they did chocolate 200 years ago. The great time was when you were on that pirate ship in Barbados and you're watching people swing out into the water on the rope swing and walking the plank on the side of the ship to fall into the water and swim in that beautiful blue water. Those are the times you remember. You don't remember washing the car. You just don't. You don't remember mowing the lawn. You remember those things. You remember the Segway tour on the beaches of Nassau. That's what you remember, and that's what you'll treasure. So those are the things that I'm going to talk about in this show. I hope it all works out for you. I hope you enjoy it. I hope you understand where I'm coming from. Again, my name is Dave McGowan. This show is Traveling with Dave, and I'll see you on vacation.